Well, I thought I'd do a bit of an update. I'm going to put a blog out probably over the weekend, but I thought this was as good a time as any. So just kind of update, having moved on from Hillsborough County, I went up to Bremerton, which is in Kitsap County, which is just outside. Say just outside, everything is like hours away in this part of the world, but just outside Seattle, and a really diverse place where I got to see some really exciting projects taking place. They're trying to introduce trauma informed or resilience, promoting support all the way across the community. So I met with the schools, Graduate Strong, which is the school system, but I also got to see a community meeting where people in the community were being taught about things like the ACEs, being talk about resilience and what part they can play in making their community more strong. So that really is something that I want to bring back and deliver alongside hopefully some other people in the community and lower stuff. This idea of delivering straight to the people, an understanding of resilience, understanding of the power of it, of the way that we can change our communities if we understand our strengths and the things that we need support with, and particularly if we understand epigenetics, which is a huge part now of the trauma-informed kind of process. So understanding that and helping communities understand that is going to be huge. And Cody, who heads things up there, really great to meet him. Really powerful speaker and a really effective connector of people. They're building networks up there, and that's really powerful. So those networks are offering hope to communities that they can change themselves and heal themselves. And one of the things I really felt powerfully up there was the idea that whatever is caused the breach in the resilience, whatever's caused the harm in a community is what will help to repair it. So I feel like in Lowestoft, to a certain extent, there's kind of like perhaps a departure from having pride in the community and the history of the town. And so I think actually, as well as the medical model type stuff, we need to really think about how we celebrate successfully. And I know there's been some work about that, successfully our culture and our community, because I think part of the healing for Lowestoft needs to come from that. So I think I'll be really interested to see how we can kind of knit those things together, particularly because we're blessed with the Seagull Theatre and the Marina and Phil and Lowestoft Rising doing some real great work and heritage stuff that's coming up. So we've got a lot of opportunity, but I think we need to name it as part of a process of healing for the community and make the community understand why that can work. So that'll be really exciting. Spent some time with Dario Longhi, who's is an Italian but American citizen, who is the researcher who in Walla Walla, where I am now, and up in Kitsap and then around the USA, he's developed probably one of the most comprehensive data sets in the world around trauma, resilience, and what the real powerful learning has been that yes, we can support people with their individual resilience and we can help individuals, but it's contextual resilience that we really need to work on. So community resilience, so building capacity in the community, people support each other. That's the absolute building blocks for individuals to be successful and for people to sustainably be resilient and to lead more successful lives. So that's the huge thing as well, is learning, the statistics behind that. So for example, what we were able to learn from that data is if you live in a street where adults are likely to step in and intervene if a child does something wrong, immediately you're more likely to live in a place and you're more likely to live longer and be more successful and be more happy and earn more money. Immediately, just by that's the factor that instantly tells us that will happen. So if on your street, your neighbours are willing to say to a child, hey, you shouldn't do that, that's a great factor that tells us that a whole lot of other things are going on. And so that contextual resilience is really fascinating stuff. We need to understand back home the data around that, because again, that's a real building block for transforming communities across Waveney, which we hope to do. I've then arrived here in Walla Walla, and it's just been an amazing. I can't believe we've been here a week already. I've already been for a proclamation at the city council, which was cool. It's Resilience Month here in Walla Walla, so they celebrate that, and I think naming things is really good. So I think back home we need to think about whether we have Resilience Month in Waveney and Lowestoft in East Suffolk, whatever, or Suffolk itself. And also I've visited several projects. So there's a really fantastic C2C project which is all about community capacity building, particularly focused around the Latino community, which is significant here in this part of Washington, where there's a lot of grape growing and fruit growing and crops and things like that. So a large migrant community has been established here. It's changed dramatically over the last several years, but well established. And what this does is it empowers them to take action, because as a community the tradition has been that they don't necessarily speak up for themselves, they don't represent themselves quite as powerfully, And so they've just been doing things like, even recently, just before I got here, they were celebrating having a potluck party, which is basically all about having potholes repaired on your street. And that was this organisation encouraging people to take affirmative action for themselves, take control. They presented to the city council what they needed, and they fought for it, and they got it, and that kind of thing. So that kind of empowerment, seeing how they build capacity. Andrew, who does that, has done a really successful job of building capacity. What we were thinking about with him was how he records that, and actually that's been a really interesting piece of work here, because traditional outcomes measures are a real problem for me. I really think that sometimes what we have to record and report for NHS or social care doesn't capture the richness of what we're trying to develop in a community. The power of what Dario is doing with his research and what he was talking to Andrew about is actually doing this participatory research, which means we don't just capture data in terms of numbers and figures, we capture stories, the stories of people in their communities, and that's when we can really understand what's happening in a rich way, and that's how we understand this contextual resilience. So actually people can sit in front of you and tell their story, and we can do research based on that, and I think that's really exciting. So this participatory research that Dario has championed is really exciting, I think, for us to bring back and think about in the UK, particularly for me in Lowestoft and the wider community. I've also seen Lincoln High School. Those of you who've seen Paper Tigers will know Lincoln High School is quite famous as one of the early adopters of trauma-informed support, and they're still doing great work. And I saw an amazing school today in something called Sunnyside High School, a couple of hours drive. So I was up there for a sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock start, and met Leadership Group, which is a group of the seniors in the school who are thinking about leadership in an abstract way, but supporting each other. A lot of peer support going on, a lot of support from teachers to students, students to teachers, across peer groups, across age groups. And what they did was they took a brave decision that they just said, we're going to have to focus here on emotional regulation and the emotional side of children's development, and we're going to have to do that for a couple of years and accept that the academic results might not be as good as we have been hoping for. Actually, as it has, they've over the course of 4 or 5 years, they've gone from a 48% graduation rate to a 96% graduation rate in terms of their outcomes at the school by working on emotional regulation and encouraging that in schools. They've also, the knock-on effect is that what they've seen in the community as well is fewer young people entering gangs, because they're learning resilience, they're transferring that to their home lives, into their communities, and they're less likely to need to look to that kind of grouping to find it. So it's not just the school, and the school's got a real understanding. And the kids that I spoke to, because I spoke to them without an adult other than me, so I guess without an adult in the room, I spoke to them about whether they felt that was happening, and undoubtedly these young people felt that they were learning skills beyond education that they would use in their communities and their lives forever. So I think that's really powerful. But what I think I'm really learning, I've seen loads of different models. You can do trauma-informed care in lots of different ways in lots of different places. What is absolutely common, though, is that it has to come from the top as well, that it has to be modelled, that it has to be protected. So if you've got environments which are about resilience, you can't allow them to be environments for naughty children just to go to de-stress or whatever. You have to protect it, you have to stick with it. It's a whole community, a whole village that wraps around it. And I literally saw it yesterday as I went up Brochy, are one of the biggest apple producers in the world. Something like 70% of all the apples in the United States come from Washington State, and something like 80% of all the apples from Washington State come from Brochy. So they're a huge organisation, but they have, in their case, because of their Christian values, established 2 large communities, towns that they've built for the people who work for them, which are very much established on trauma-informed principles. So they are building entire communities with this in mind, especially because these are really challenged. These are people, these are migrant communities. They come in with lots of aces, and so they're real challenges, and they're a real passion for it, a real heart for it, and it was amazing. So Walla's been just as incredible as I thought. I've got another 2 weeks left, that's all, and then I'm home, but I've got loads of stuff to share, and the main thing I think I'm is getting into the community and helping the general public understand their role in making this successful. So yeah, it's been another great week. I'll write it up as well, and I'll be in touch with another video soon, I'm sure. But yeah, having an amazing time, and I've got to say, it's a beautiful part of the world. Anyone who sees my photographs, I don't know if you're jealous or not, but it is pretty spectacular. So over and out for now.